morning, everybody, and happy
Morning.
new week. This morning, I have Rory Conder with me to talk about sunyata sound healing and breathwork and a retreat that he's got coming up. Rory, good morning. How are you? Lovely to meet you.
I'm very well, Lilia. Yeah, nice to meet you too. We've got a lot of mutual acquaintances, but I believe this is the first time.
That we've actually spoken face to face. So this is awesome. And I just love sound healing and breathwork are obviously two of my very, very, very favourite things in the world. So let's, before we start talking about your products and your retreat, tell me, how did you get into all this and how's it going?
Yeah, so I'm a multi-instrumentalist for many years, and I studied sound engineering technology at university. I've also got a background in chefing and offshore and industrial stuff, but I did psychology and philosophy at Open University. In between my diploma and my degree, just always had an interest in helping people. Kind of grew up with a bunch of different situations that required a lot of inner work and a lot of processing to deal with. And there was, some therapeutic interventions, but I never found that they really worked for me specifically. So I was finding a much more like hands-on holistic approach through meditation, through yoga, through different types of mindfulness practice. And, I always found a lot of relief through spending time in nature and through music. So as I deepened my studies, I ended up doing my dissertation on how sound can support states of meditation, having already done quite a lot of research into different traditional practices of meditation and how they can help heal the body, the mind, like strengthen the mind-body axis. So when I was doing case studies, I discovered Soundsphere Scotland, based in Peebles, with Suzanne Nairn. She's well established. And I basically went to her yurt medicine evening and had a very profound experience. And one thing led to another. She was Suzanne Nairn, Soundsphere Scotland. And or Susie. We've become very close friends and colleagues. As the way the universe runs, she was looking for a sound technician to upgrade one of her events in Edinburgh. So I ended up doing a bit of an exchange for some of the training. I did some work for her. And so I got certified. My first experience in that, I could never have imagined myself being a sound therapist, sound healer. But as my understanding of what the modality involved deepened, and as my different skill sets became more applicable to that, I really felt the call and started my own practice, really, having finished her training. And then one thing led to another, as they always do, and I found myself in Wales at a retreat and had my first ever breathwork experience. And that was mind-blowing, a real game changer. There's one thing about regulating your nervous system and finding safety in the body, but it's completely different to actually release stored trauma, and trauma being not what happened to us, but how the body has stored that within ourselves. So just creating this space where that can be explored and then integrated was absolutely remarkable for me. And then I met a guy there that basically suggested Sacred Sons, the International Men's Work Organization, and they had a scholarship at the time. So I was very lucky in the sense that I managed to get a scholarship discount to go to their Convergence event. That was Convergence 8, just south of Edinburgh, about 3 years ago. And that blew my mind again. And just seeing men standing, being witnessed by each other, being vulnerable, being in integrity, maybe seeing some of these masks falling away, this whole like we need to do more, work harder, throw more hours in, this kind of like, what would you say? It's like an entropic kind of way of dealing with things, just put more in if you're not getting the results that you want in your life. But actually we need to, I recognize that having a space there where we can soften and listen deeply and be heard is massively transformative for a lot of men. And some of the stories that were coming through just, put my entire story into a much greater context.
That is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I love that journey. And this is what I'm finding when I'm talking to people is that, it's almost like you didn't expect to become a sound healer. And I think
No,
it's
I
even
think I
so,
was slightly judgmental when I first went there. I was like, who
yeah,
are these people? What is this?
uh-huh. Exactly, and I think it's nice when we kind of surrender to these things and go, "Mm, okay then." And everybody's journey, everybody I speak to and everybody that presents at our festivals, I'd love you to come along to one. They have been on their own personal journey, and I think that's the thing that's really powerful for me is when you hear it's a story, right? It's the narrative of how you got to where you're at. And I think it's nice, you have quite a lot of solid education behind you there, because it's that whole kind of what's woo-woo and what's scientific and solid. And in actual fact, you don't really need to think very far to realize the power of music and how it's affected you your whole life, and how the sounds and make you feel. So I think we all intuitively and subconsciously fully understand the power of sound, the power of the voice. And you said something there that really resonated with me is the power of sharing, telling your story and being heard, and getting to say, whatever it is you need to say in a very sacred and safe space is just hugely powerful. So do you have
Yeah,
your own space, or do you work in other people's spaces?
I tend to hire out studios. For example, the Wee Retreat in Glasgow,
I love it
town
there.
halls up in the Highlands, and different places around.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've done one-to-one sessions at client houses, and I've also done festivals. For example, Eden Festival, we've done that for 3 years running now, and
Great.
Soul Fest last year. Maybe
Hmm.
Soul Revolution, a little bit of work at Medicine Fest. So we'll see
Nice.
where the future holds. But I'm usually open to trying different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said another thing, you're from Aviemore, which is possibly one of our most beautiful outdoor play areas in Scotland. It's a place, I know I skied there. I've not done much hiking there, but I just love the scenery. And my friends are at Linbreck Croft. Do you know Lynn and Sandra at Linbreck?
No, I don't actually, but
You need to
um,
visit their place. What they're doing
okay.
is just blow your mind, bring tears to your eyes, how they work with the land and the animals. And it's nature, right? We know we're getting so much energy from nature. And,
Oh, Lynbreck Croft. That was on TV, wasn't it? At one point, actually,
yes, it
I've
was.
driven by it. Yeah, I've never been in. You're right. I should check it out.
You should call in and tell them that I sent you, that because they're just, I love that pair. What they've done, talk about thinking outside the box. They really have done that, and they've created an absolutely, a wonderful space that shows how the land, the animals, and the humans can work in this symbiotic way. And it's so beautiful to watch. It's actually really moving when you go there. You'll see it.
Mm,
It's just stunning looking out over the mountains. And what was interesting for me was this year, no, last year they had to put in a well because they weren't having enough water. Like,
mm.
what? In Scotland,
I
it's
know in one of
crazy.
the wettest parts of the world, it feels
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
sometimes.
Uh-huh. And they can see the
It's
rain falling on the mountains round about, and there's just like it's crazy. But anyway, that's all we're here to talk about.
I
But you
imagine
definitely
the
should
bog
visit.
draws it all up. Anyway, I can really feel a resonance there between how that symbiosis between the land and the people and the animals versus how also there's a real metaphor there for holistic health because we see our body as part of this ecosystem with its own innate wisdom and intelligence. It's part of an environment it requires resources, it requires nourishment and different like environmental cues that stimulate growth, stimulate health, stimulate well-being. And oftentimes we find in life that we're kind of, maybe it's not necessarily that things have gone terribly wrong, but maybe we didn't have enough of the right support, and so we can end up developing maladaptive coping mechanisms that in later life, while they once served us, later life they become much more part of a personality. They always say that trauma unresolved in an individual looks like a personality trait. If it's in a family, it looks like a family trait, and if it's in a society, it looks like a culture.
Yeah,
But equally, when you're seeing places like Limbrick Croft and how the work can actually start to kind of come outwards, you can see that resolving in real time. And it
Absolutely.
brings happiness to everybody that comes to it, because sometimes it's such a big breath of fresh air if they are living in chronic stress, if they are living in old patterns and outdated mechanisms that no longer serve them. And the power of
Absolutely.
nature is so healing, and we often think we should be separated from it in our mental capacity, maybe try and control nature, but ultimately we are of nature and of the earth. And a lot of my work is really about and a lot of holistic health in general is really about tapping into the body's innate healing capacity. Like, I'm not a healer, but the body is the greatest healer. It knows exactly how to integrate these aspects of ourselves, all this energy within us. And oftentimes just having a safe space to share and to be seen and to just honor where we're at in that moment is a hugely transformative experience, because we live in such a fast-paced society. Do and overstimulation. It's hard. I think a lot of people find it hard to prioritize that, and they maybe find themselves excluding themselves from the slower pace of life, just from
Yeah.
the pressure that they might experience or perceive internally.
Yeah, absolutely. You are talking my language. Exactly. Yeah. It's, the kind of science, because obviously we need science, don't we? Because we've given so much power away, that's coming out around light, natural light, and how it speeds up your healing is mind blowing. And yet we've built our hospitals where you can't actually open a window or a door. It's almost like we go the opposite way from what the body actually needs. So yeah, I'm absolutely with you in that, and I really feel that. I was saying to my friend that's created Westlow Shores down in Tarbert, I said, this is how hospitals will look in the future. There's the river there, there's the sea there, there's the biotherapies there, there's the forest, there's all the nature, and there's individual pods, and people can actually come and get well. Yeah. So listen, thank you for the amazing work you're doing, and let's just briefly talk about the how men's health very often gets overlooked, and with drug deaths and with suicides, we still have an enormous problem in Scotland. Not just Scotland, but we're in the bottom rung of the ladder, or the top, depending on how you frame it. And it's a situation that's really, for me, intolerable and unnecessary. And we, the people, need to change it, because the government are clearly, they don't have the brains, or I don't know. I really don't understand how we got where we're at, but we're here, and how we're going to move forward, I believe, is with the people, for the people, by the people. So men's retreats, I know, because it can be difficult. That there's a pride that comes with kind of feeling that you should be a certain way, and that you're maybe not, bottling things up. And let's face it, a lot of people are single now, because, so therefore they're not getting a kind of the support, even if it's the presence of another human being support, and then that can lead to all sorts of, awful mental health
Absolutely.
issues.
Absolutely.
So,
There's obviously a lot of socioeconomic factors in that, with the deindustrialization went on the 70s, the idea that you need to be the breadwinner, like the man of the house. You need to have the kind of the sovereignty of bringing in the money, of kind of having that
absolutely,
status or that positioning within the family unit. And it's changed so much. I think roles and identity has changed so much in my lifetime alone, that a lot of men are maybe not knowing how they fit into the society that they find themselves in, they wake up into every day.
absolutely, I couldn't agree
And
more.
the other aspect of the social side is that we are in a framework of numbing, of self-soothing, of just trying to distract, or keep calm and carry on, and not necessarily addressing or feeling some of these things. I
Mhm.
can speak personally from my own story, that I wasn't able to name my emotions, name my feelings, or feel safe or confident to express them for the longest time. Didn't trust being around men, didn't trust how I was going to be received. And it wasn't until I started really doing the work with community and men's spaces that I was able to kind of break some of those layers and recognize the part. And don't get me wrong, it was intimidating. There was a point where I just wanted to get in my car and drive out of there. And on my way to the vehicle, I bumped into two guys sitting on a tree, and we ended up speaking for 2 hours. And that was the medicine I needed, just a smaller space outside of
Version.
the big, yeah. And I
Absolutely.
stayed for the rest of the event.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and it is that, it's kind of following your intuition, even when fear or resistance wants to stop you, and that's, I think basically, I was thinking about this morning. a dear friend of mine in Malta, I used to say, you need to stop being such a big baby. Come on, man up. We need to do this. I think we've been led to believe that life should just be this big walk in the park, and it's absolutely not. We need to learn to be resilient, and we need to absolutely know how to self-regulate. And we've all done that, turn to alcohol and drugs and shopping and sex, or thinking, somebody else can fix all our problems. And we're now going like, all right, okay, it's up to us.
Yeah.
and, and coming to a retreat like yours, does require a level of courage. But people say they're scared to come to our festival, which I find like mind blowing. But we have to understand that's how people feel. So it's been able to just take that step forward, have a conversation with you around what it's going to mean, read the skill sets that are on offer. There's 3. So let's talk about the retreat. Tell me who's all going to be there and how it's going to look.
So we're using the Trossachs Tryst, which is a new retreat venue, and one of my clients was helping to build it. So that was all fell into place very organically, and having that affinity with nature and having a bit of a space outside the city really felt in alignment. And the other 2 guys that I'm co-facilitating with, I both met at Sacred Sons event. One's English from London and one's Welsh. The Londoner is a kinesiologist that's working with the different meridians and energy within the body, but he's also a storyteller, entrepreneur, business owner. He's been working a lot with different groups and men. He does some initiation stuff. He does some nature work as well. So a lot of his stuff's very narrative based. How do we actually weave a new story? How can we reauthor our life? But in a playful and gentle way, not trying to really have this bravado, or he's very precise with his words and very accurate with his perceptions, and just a very good guide when it comes to listening and creating that space. Callan from South Wales is a sea cliff and climbing leadership instructor. He also does conscious connected breath work, which is the same style that I do. So he's done a lot of processing and trauma informed research and work with multiple clients. And he's been doing these. Him and Chris have been working on things, rites of passage, little events down south, which have been increasing, just getting men out of their comfort zone a little bit, but in a kind of safe way, and then having all of the stuff that comes up through that, having a safe space to share and really connect. And then there's myself.
I mean, that is a phenomenal lineup. Do you know what I was talking about last week too? Is I've got 4 grandsons. One is 18, about to turn 18, and one is 12. I would love them to get into this kind of stuff now. I think we've got prevention surely has got to be better than cure. And I was talking to the guys at Big Business Entrepreneur about this as well. They talk about wealth intelligence, and I'm like that, health intelligence. This should be taught in schools and these kind of things. But the thing is, what we're doing is there's a huge gap. Because basically, what have you got? Pharmaceutical drugs or nothing. So we're kind of filling the gap about all the other things that you can do.
Exactly.
But that's taken a long time to infiltrate. And really, kids should grow up and understanding their body and the power of sound and the power of getting together. And, these retreats, as we're calling them now, that was a natural part of being a community. The men would go away and hunt, and they would sit round their fires at night. They would chat to each other, and the women would get their knitting needles out, or they would do their cordage or whatever they were doing, or the wool, and they would sit around
singing the walking songs. And there was definitely elements of circles and circle sharing, and it was a big part of initiation as well. Was being in that gender-based element where you're really exploring what it is to feel that energy within you and how it relates and interfaces with the rest of the community. I just need to say that this retreat is not exclusive to trans people. Are welcome as well. There's LGBTQ, because basically what it is it's an introduction to men's work. There's been quite a lot of different men's work things through Mankind Project in Scotland over the years, which is incredible. But I don't think Sacred Sons have done anything here. They've done stuff in Ireland and in Devon and different parts of England, but really it's about creating that curiosity, that connection and that communication so that people know what it is by the time that they've left it. They've had a lot of outer work in terms of like the relational stuff, the sharing, the being seen, the kind of meeting their growth edges, but also feeling supported, maybe working through some of the things that they've not had a chance to really speak about or felt comfortable speaking about within their communities. And, just creating a space for that to have a voice. And then the inner work would be the second half of the day, where we're doing the breath work, just allowing a full nervous system reset and giving people the opportunity to connect with their bodies in a way that they maybe haven't done before, allowing themselves to give the parts of themselves that have maybe been abandoned, rejected, or ignored a voice. And I really see that as a big honor, because sometimes these parts of ourselves haven't had a voice for decades. So we're really coming from that area of curiosity and then bringing the sound healing in to integrate that, then a sharing circle. And Chris has very kindly offered everybody that comes a 15-minute integration call 2 weeks after the event as well. So there's going to be some follow-up care. And the real mission statement is to let people like walk away with the real good, solid foundation of whether this work is for them, and an ability to self-source and deal with some of the maybe the material, the psychological material, or maybe even their life's work. Going back to what you said about the word retreat, I actually like to use the word advance quite often, because I feel like it's about showing up and really pushing through your growth edges and coming to this level of self-acceptance and acceptance of others, rather than retreating from life and try to restore and recuperate and then you go back into the grind. It's really about showing up, moving through, and maybe repatterning some of these old things. So for me, it's changed my life completely. I've made huge, drastic decisions, which have changed my entire reality from the ground up, just from, de-armoring and letting go of some of the aspects of myself that were no longer serving. And it has taken a long time. So I wouldn't say that this is a pill or like a one-size-fits-all kind of quick fix or anything like that, but it's definitely a really important stepping stone. And I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't have that stepping stone.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. Everything you're saying is just 100% what I've kind of worked out as well, which, there needs to be some kind of what we find is that we put everybody that comes to our retreats into a WhatsApp group, and they very often become friends and they keep the thing going, because the reality is you and I can only do so much, right? And I think anybody that's selling this is a quick pill, a quick fix. Interestingly enough, I had a client recently who had been diagnosed with cancer and looked at Hope for Cancer in America, in Mexico. And it was a 3-week course for 45 grand. And she was thinking of going, but she thought 3 weeks is not, it's not going to cut the mustard in a healing journey. So she started Googling and she found us up at the Health Hub. And you need to come and visit. I'd love to show you around. And we're also going to be having an education side there. I would love you to come and do a talk. We've got 5 event spaces, so maybe we can talk about that afterwards. And it's a good way to drive people towards your retreats, is to be part of that community. And the thing is, the Heal Scotland community, they're already looking for stuff like this. But yeah, so this girl realised, I need support for a year, and at least, and that's common sense. But most of us are like that. Well, if I take this herb or do this, take this vitamin, or I get this infusion. No. Yes, of course, that can be part of your journey, but it's been part of a community. You need to be with the flock that are doing the constant work on themselves, rather than the flock that aren't. And I always say it's just exactly like a diet. You don't just arrive and stay like that for the rest of your life. We are an ecosystem energy. We're in constant state of flux, a constant state of growth, or not. And that requires a community, I think, that you can have a lot of fun with and share the load and get out the blaming, shaming, complaining mentality, and really, vibrate at these much higher levels, which is solutions. How do we move forward from where we're at now? So
I completely agree with that. There's actually a little story that came to mind that a brother of mine told me. I was shared at a circle at a men's work event. He was talking about oak trees. So you often see oak trees standing solitary in a field because they're the stronger woods compared to like the aspen, the birch, the elder. And so the other ones blow away over the years, but the oak is staying there. But what's interesting is the oaks that grow in the forest actually grow stronger because they're having to compete for resources, for sunlight. Their roots have to go a bit deeper to compete for water. I'm not suggesting that communities have to compete all the time for resources, because we actually share a lot, but they're also sharing within the ecosystem. So in many senses, the ecosystem strengthens.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of
Exactly. And
the...
problem solve together. It's instead of competing, I would say, remember I was in Peru and I was I can't remember the name of the place down the south near Nazca. And they were talking about when they had a famine, a drought. There's 9,000 people in the community. That's how they addressed it. How can we keep the 9,000 people alive? And part of that was actually catching the sea turtles and eating them, which was, that was a survival. And whether you view that to be right or wrong, what really struck me was they looked at it as a community of how can we solve the problem. And
Yeah,
that's what we need to be doing. In Scotland, we're in the bottom of the health rung ladder, and that to me is
I know.
it's embarrassing, it's unacceptable, and it's unnecessary. So how do we get ourselves off? By doing things like this, but also by sharing and not fighting and bickering and bringing each other down, by bringing each other up and lifting up. I don't know when I'm obviously a lot older than you. Time is ticking for me, and I'm like, come on, guys. The divide and conquer strategy is just madness, especially in this so-called spiritual world. Let's communicate, let's collaborate, and let's get this bloody show on the road, and let's get us off the bottom rung of the ladder.
I know.
Because we
As we
can.
strengthen communities, everything can be positively impacted. We're living in multiple crises and epidemics currently, not only suicide among men, but also rape and other aspects of very destructive and deflated masculine behavior. And, these things are completely unacceptable. And if consciousness rises and accountability is there, then you're not going to get away with behavior like that.
Absolutely.
And you're actually going to feel a lot more, in command of those kind of emotions.
Uh-huh.
And
Exactly.
I
And
don't
understanding
see...
that it is an
Yeah.
emotion and it is a feeling and it can change, and making decisions from that non-emotive place. And at the risk of pissing off all the women out there, very often women are making choices from an emotional place that is not for the greater good. And that's why we need the kind of yin and the yang. And that's why we need our men well and healthy and balanced. So thank you for this work. And I'm just wish I could come on the retreat because it looks absolutely amazing. And I would love to chat to you more about getting you up to the health hub, and how can we infiltrate maybe primary sevens, because I think when you go into high school it's gone, but I think an inspirational talk from you, like for the kind of 12-year-olds, would be incredible, and start really working before too much more damage gets done.
That'd be beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Yourself, like, breath work isn't really suitable for people under the age of 18, but the sound healing can be integrated into schools. Susie, my teacher, does it all the time. She's done it for decades, and it's so well received. And it just gives people a bit of a exposure to different elements of health. And, emotions are energy in motion, and kids find that stuff overwhelming if the energy doesn't have anywhere to go. And if their creativity is maybe stifled, or if they have different elements in their lives that are a bit problematic, and just having a space where they can feel like they can sit with it and let it move its own way
Uh-huh.
is really,
A wee
really helpful.
shout out to Susie there. I've put her, you need to connect me with her. I love the sound of her. And it brings me to a story that happened last week when I was doing this training. There was a woman there. I'm not sure what religion she was. She had like a scarf on. I'm getting mixed up with what's what, but it doesn't matter. She was beautiful. She was an artist, and she had I didn't realize, but it was her son, her 18-year-old son, that was with her. And the guy, Damien, who was doing the coaching, he said, he says, I don't know who my dad was. I was brought up without a dad, still don't know who he is. And so he that was part of his kind of, story.
Yeah.
So, but he kind of, and how he went off the rails a bit and blah, blah, blah. And then how he realized, right, he got a great coach and the coach got him back on track. And then towards the end of the course, this woman spoke up and she just basically had the whole room in tears by saying, I really struggled to pay for this course, but now I realise my son was meant to hear this. He's never had a dad. He's not, and he's seeing you. And, and I thought, this is what it's about. We can, yes, it's sad that we don't all of that beautiful 2.5 family. Very few people do now. So what are we
Yeah,
going to do about it? We need
I
to be able
know.
to turn these things round and teach kids to be resilient. And you know what? If you don't have a role model, find one. There's plenty of people out there, 8 billion or 9 billion now. It doesn't need to be blood related. There's lots of brilliant people out there. Most of the people I know, desperate to help, really, really want to be part of the
Absolutely.
change. So thank you.
I
So I've
found
got the link. I've got the link in there
mhm.
for your retreat. And for the next 48 hours, anybody listening this live or on replay, 20% off. Please share this. This is essential information to get out to the masses. If you've got a brother, a son, a granny, a grandpa, or a
Father,
husband,
stepdad,
a brother, yeah, any
anybody.
any man that you know would be interested in this, or who's a community of people that would love to go along. As a teacher myself, it's great going to other people's retreats to just get inspired. Morning, Emma. Yeah, we're just about to finish. So yeah, lovely to see you. Thanks. Please share, guys. We need to help each other. We need to support each other in this journey. Rory, thank you so much for your work. And
Thank you, Lilia, for holding the space and being so attentive in the conversation. That was very, very welcomed in my life. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, we need to meet, and I would love you to come to the Health Hub and let's discuss other opportunities to get to the young men in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope the
Absolutely.
retreat's a huge
Brilliant.
success. And I would be interested in finding out more about that venue as well, because I'm always looking for venues.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It looks amazing there. Tickets are selling
Yeah.
fast, so this is a great opportunity in the next 24 hours
Yeah,
to
you
get an
get
early bird.
20% offer,
20% off.
especially for people that are listening and catching this. So please grab it. Help. Let's get this country off the bottom rung of the ladder. Right. Cheers, Rory. All the best. And I hope it
Thank you
goes
so
well. Let
much,
me know.
Lilia.
I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah,
Bye,
perfect. Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
week. Ciao.